Footlick Abdi, Dan here, and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2 Around the World in Time. It is time to open our Liverpool and Manchester Railway, culminating in the opening ceremony or event that was held for the opening of the railway. Now we'll go into that in detail. We're going to be starting here at Liverpool Lime Street. We're actually going to be riding on the Northumbrian because that is the train that led the procession, which we'll go into details in a bit more. Now this is obviously hell on earth for most people. I thought I'd added this station with multiple platforms, but it seems that there's just one, so I'm going to have to change that because no one can get anywhere. It's just a mass of vehicles that are stuck. So we've got the other trains on the line. These are Rockets. This is Comet. This is Phoenix, which is also a Northumbrian, I believe. We've got Wildfire that later gets changed to the name Meteor. And we have the Dart, which was another rocket class train that was delivered, and Arrow. Yeah, I think that's it. And the Rocket is actually away, but it is there. We will see it. I was going to launch them from here. So this is our Edge Hill Trainworks, but the Rocket class and the Northumbrian class were not built at Edge Hill. This Trainworks was built later. The original vehicles were built in Newcastle at George and Robert Stevenson's engineering firm there. They were dismantled, or they were made in pieces and then sent over down to Liverpool to be reassembled there. So our train is ready to go, and we'll literally just jump on board this one. We'll push play. Frame rate might be an issue to start with. It always is, and then it sort of irons itself out. Is it going to iron itself out? It is. Right, so we'll stay with Northumbrian for this journey. We will double speed it because these trains are quite slow in nature. So even at double speed, it still feels like a nice pace. Oh look, the trams and stuff are actually moving. Excellent. So people are obviously getting to the station there. I just need to uncluster. This is a good term. But yeah, the opening ceremony. Now, when I was doing a bit of testing as well, and I was going to do all 8 trains going in a row, but it was not to be. But I've got Wikipedia open, so we can go through some of the details. Oh wait, what is actually the first stop? Oh, Edge Hill is actually the first stop. Looking good there, Edge Hill. Who's this? It's the Dart. The Dart is heading, and lots of people have turned up for the opening ceremony. Very nice. I don't know if being zoomed in that close is such a great idea. I kind of want to see what is going on around the map. There are obviously a lot of buildings and stuff, but as you can see, the AI towns are working just fine, and they are actually building stuff. So, yes, the opening. Well, who's that? Don't know. Didn't get to click on it in time. Maybe 2 times speed is a bit too fast. But in this episode, we'll do a journey on the Northumbrian from Liverpool all the way to Manchester, and then we'll jump on a Rocket and do another video from Manchester back to Liverpool. We may do that one at sunset or at night even. So yeah, the excuse me, the opening ceremony of the the London and Manchester Railway on 15th of September 1830 was a considerable event. I would imagine so. It would have been a great day, not just for British engineering, but for engineering around the world, because this really solidified the viable use of steam trains or locomotives to overtake horse-drawn freight and passengers. So If this had been a resounding failure, the world might have looked very different today, trainless perhaps, unless someone perfected the idea later on and then it was taken on board. I'm sure it would have. I find it difficult that something like a train would never have been invented. It surely would have at some point. But here we are at Broad Green. So, was a considerable event drawing luminaries from the government and industry, including the Prime Minister, the Duke of Wellington. The day started with a procession of 8 trains setting out from Liverpool to Manchester. The parade was led by Northumbrian, which is the train we are on right now. Now, obviously, it's not leading the procession because the Phoenix is actually in front of us. So, it was an 8-train procession. We actually have the 8 trains. So if we go into here, we've got Arrow, Comet, Dart, North Star, Northumbrian, Phoenix, Rocket, and Wildfire. Now, Phoenix is a Northumbrian, so is Northumbrian, obviously, and so is North Star. The rest were all, the other 4 were of Rocket design. So we've got the Rocket here, and Wildfire, that was later called Meteor, Dart, Comet, and Arrow were all the original Rocket. So, the parade was led by Northumbrian, driven by George Stephenson himself, and included Phoenix, driven by his son Robert, North Star, driven by his brother Robert Sr., and Rocket, driven by assistant engineer Joseph Locke. The day, however, was marred by the death of William Huskinson, the Member of Parliament for Liverpool, who was struck and killed by Rocket at Parkside. Now, if we are lucky, this train might arrive at Parkside and Rocket might be cruising past on its way back to Liverpool. But yeah, I believe that a few of the dignitaries got off of one of the coaches to go and stretch their legs and talk to other people in other carriages, and 2 of them couldn't get back up onto their carriage in time. And as Rocket was coming along, because the Rocket was actually built without brakes, so literally weight would have slowed it down or thrown it into reverse gear, which apparently took quite a long time. So yeah, one of them was unfortunate. I believe his leg was crushed from the sort of pelvis area and then he died. There is actually the Huskinson Memorial, or there was a memorial made for it. So a great day for engineering, but marred by tragedy, because obviously someone died on the very first day. That ain't so good. What is going on here? Oh, it's a windmill. I wondered what that was. Where are we? I don't know. We are approaching Rainhill Station. Very nice. Very nice. So yeah. There was the 8. I've been on Wikipedia. It does say... it gives you the names of the 8 trains that were in the procession. There's also things like it says that Phoenix was a version of the Northumbrian, and so was the North Star. And it tells you that, well, there's a section that says Rocket designs were delivered to the Liverpool and Manchester Railway, included Arrow, Comet, Dart, and Meteor, all being delivered to the railway during 1830. So there were obviously 5 Rocket types, and the other 3 were Northumbrians, which is nice, which we've got actually rolling right now. Oh, there's our castle ruins in the distance. I'm happy with the way that turned out, and the mod by I can't remember their names, but they've got a YouTube channel and they do the open range series, and it looks magic, the stuff that they've built. But yeah, so our journey continues on, and that was basically the details of the opening ceremony. Now, there were other trains that ran on the line in this period of time. The Bolton and Lee Railway had the Lancashire Witch and Sans Perel, which was leased to the Bolton and Lee Railway by the Liverpool and Manchester Railway. So they leased those two locomotives out, and they would have ran from Bolton down to Lee, and then I think they stopped in Newton Lee Willows, and then they headed back on their merry way. There was also Novelty that ran in the Rainhill Trails, which was leased out to the St Helens and Runcorn Gap Railway, and there were other locomotives added to the railway in 1830 as well. The Planet class was added. I believe the Patentee and the Samson class were added really early into the railway's life as well, because it actually tells you that the rockets themselves. So where is it? That's the Rainhill Trails, right? Hold on. Service, yeah. So, history between 1830 and 1840 is only vaguely documented. Yes, this is true. That's what it says on Wikipedia, and this is an issue that I've kind of been dealing with while trying to build out these routes and these old, really old first-time railways. So, information from the past, back in those days, the 1800s, is pretty sketchy. It's sketchy at best. They've obviously found some files and documents and some old lithographs, paintings, drawings, etc. that depict what that sort of stuff looked like. They've obviously found the original designs for things like Rocket and Northumbria, and they're showcased in various railway museums across the UK. And we've obviously got I think there's a few really early steam locomotives like the Rocket. I think Invicta was one of them, and there's a few engines that were preserved, not in pristine condition, but you can sort of reverse engineer and find out what exactly made them tick from those early variants that were preserved and left to the railway museums. So that is kind of cool. You can get information on that, but most of it is pretty sketchy at best. There's a lot of named trains for the Liverpool and Manchester Railway, and you don't really know what they look like, what colour they were, what service they ran on, and none of that information really exists, unfortunately. So this has been kind of difficult to sort of figure out where things should go and how things should work, but I'm kind of getting around it. There are other trains that I need to build lines for. We're going to do an Agnoria line. I am going to port the Invicta over from Transport Fever 1, because Steve M4 did do a Invicta mod for Transport Fever 1, but it's not been ported over to 2 yet. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna do the line that the Invicta ran on, which I believe was down in the southeast. So we'll get that running. We can also, as I said, get the branch lines in this area up and running. And we're going to add the Planet class, the Samson class, the Patentee class, and then we're going to be moving on to other parts of the world. Belgium had really early railways. What else had really early railways? Oh, Russia, the America. The USA, not the America. Canada had very early railways. The Germans. So yeah, we'll have to get all those things up and running. Now, what I found is that most of those really early railways in those countries had British steam locomotives made by either the Stephensons or the Hackworths, and were sent abroad to start up their railways. So yeah, as I said, information is a bit sketchy, because one of the examples is, for example, the first railway in America, the first steam-driven or power-driven locomotive railway in America. So on one site it says that the Stourbridge Lion was the first steam loco to ever operate in America, and another website it says it was a locomotive that sort of looked like the Novelty, called the Tom Thumb, that was the first one, and then there's another website that says there was one made way back before the 1800s, and that was the world's first ever steam locomotive. But there's absolutely zero documentation or records of such a thing existing, so it doesn't count. It's just probably a hearsay, or it could possibly be made up. Because Americans like to think that they are the first to do something, when 9 times out of 10 it's been completed by other countries in better fashion way before they've even gotten around to it. So yeah, well I have to sort of like figure that out and find the data, and it's really annoying. But round about 1830, 1831, a lot of other countries' railways using power-driven locomotives are coming online. They are starting to be formed, and yeah, it's just difficult to sort of figure out what trains were used on those on those railways, and what time they actually started. So, for example, the Russians, their railway went from, I believe it was St. Petersburg, and it didn't go as far as Moscow in the beginning. Now, one website says that a locomotive delivered by Timothy Hackworth, and he actually put his son in charge of the delivery of this locomotive and its assembly and its operation to begin with, over to Russia in the 1830s to run on this Moscow to, I can't remember what it was called, Tupolev or something. So it's something like that. I can't remember, but that says that was the first locomotive to run there. Now, on Wikipedia, it's weird because it tells you this, and then a few paragraphs later it completely contradicts itself by saying that there was a Russian father and son that built their own steam locomotive, and that one was the first ever to run on that railway. So now you've got two different conflicting stories. Obviously, I have the mod for the locomotive that was sent over by the Hackworths is available, so I can use that. But the actual steam train made by the Russians, which there's not much information on, just that it didn't work very well and it did not have a very long service life. There is no mod for that, so I can't actually use it. And obviously the first locomotive for Russia is like the Type V, so I believe that's like the Type 5, which means there were 4 other types before it. But Transport Fever have only added that one in as a sort of viable, or it maybe was the only viable locomotive, or the first viable one. But yeah, it's hard to dig through history from that period of time because there just ain't much to go on. But we're getting there, and I'm happy with the way this turned out. This water's a bit naff. I'm going to fix this and that because it looks like it should just spill out onto the tracks. But yeah, heading to, I think it's, where are we heading? Astley. So we're almost actually at Manchester. Now, one thing I will say is it has been fun. It is fun and interesting, if you like that sort of thing, to try and go back in time and figure out how things worked. The amount of information that accompanies like railways, because railways were obviously built for a reason, and it paints a sort of picture of an area of what it looked like 530 odd open pit or mine shafts or coal fields active in Lancashire at one given time. 534, that's a lot. The textile mills that ran around the areas, the clay pits, the harbours, steel mills, train works. Awesome. It's the same with in any other country. Obviously, these were used for passengers and mail, but a lot of them were used for freight first, because hauling coal wagons or stone or whatever it was a tough job, and it used up a lot of horses. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool to go back in time and see that sort of stuff. But here we are at Barton Moss. There we go. Barton Moss looks nice, I think. But yeah, it will be a sigh of relief once all this sort of really early stuff is sort of over and done with. Once we sort of get to the 1850s, the records are slightly more fleshed out. There's slightly more information to go off of, so it should be okay from then. And then obviously during the 1900s, during the war and stuff, lots of stuff is well documented. I think someone actually realised the significance of leaving documents so that historians could pick up on what was going on back in the days. But yeah, so what we'll do is we'll have the Northumbrians. We'll have them run passengers for the moment, but then we'll switch them over to mail. And we'll get some other freight trains as well to run the cargo in and around the Liverpool and Manchester Railway. We'll get the branch lines up and running. There are unbranded versions of the L&MR trains, so we'll use a couple of them to maybe help struggling branch lines if we need to. So that will be nice. But yeah, these are all the 1820s and 1830s steam locomotive collections are all made by Steve M4, and they look absolutely fantastic. I mean, this has even got the Liverpool Manchester written on the side of it that you might have just have briefly saw there. All these lines are working incredibly well also, and I've noticed that the locomotives themselves are not severely underpowered when pulling these. They will get up to their top speed. The top speed of the Northumbrian is 32 and the top speed of the Rocket is 30, but they don't reach that top speed because the top speed of the Liverpool and Manchester first class and third class wagons is only 25. So yeah, they don't really struggle. As you can see, this one got up to 25 in the short distance between Waste and whatever that was back there. I think it was Eccles, possibly. But we have gone past Parkside, and the Rocket may or may not have went past at the right time. So I'm thinking about adding a couple more wagons to these. It's strange because in the old artwork for these railways, some of the consists look ridiculously long. Very long. But obviously these wagons were not made of like sort of sturdy stuff. So yeah, maybe they weren't that bad. Or maybe the trains like the Northumbrian and the Rocket just weren't given the credit that they deserve, and they were actually OP and well fit for purpose. But here we go, we're coming into Salford, and then we'll be crossing the bridge into Manchester, which is nice. There we go, all these buildings are hand placed. It was painful, but we got it done in the end. And yeah, as I said, I'm happy with the way this turned out. I think it's okay for my first sort of huge scale high detailing. Some of the other shorter routes that are coming up won't take that long at all, which is nice. This stretch from Manchester to Liverpool was 30 miles, but it took me about 30 years to build it, so I'm glad that the main line is done, and now I can sort of focus on adding trains to this and then getting some of the branch lines. As I said, the branch lines are significantly smaller, so it's going to be easy to detail and flesh out those areas. And then it'll be nice to see the L&MR trains sharing with other railways, the Bolton and Lee Railway, the St Helens and Runcorn Gap What else was there? The Warrington Newton line, or railway. That was another one. So it looks like we're going to have to wait for whatever this is in front of us. Now, as I said, I brought these out, all 8 of them together, with the Northumbrian first, because that's how the procession went. But then they've all sort of split up and ended up in way different places. I don't know how that happened. I suppose I did let it run on for a significant amount of time. Is there many people here? There's only 9 people at Manchester Victoria, so you can really see the incredible difference between an AI town and one that is solely hand placed. Now, here there are no road transport yet, but that's going to be the exact next thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to flesh out the stagecoach and coach services. And that will be something that we'll be able to work on. But for the most part, it works totally fine. And in later episodes, as I said, we'll add the other classes that were added to the Liverpool and Manchester Railway. I mean, some of them did come in 1830, just shortly after the railway was open. So it'll be interesting to get them on the go. These things do actually have quite a significant loading time, but that one is now done, so that is fine. So yeah, we'll leave it there for that episode. In the next episode, we'll maybe do a drive-by on a rocket from Manchester over to Liverpool, and we can see all the things going back that way. But yeah, I just hope that you guys enjoyed the scenery and the ride along on the lead locomotive of the first ever intercity train route. But yeah, that's about it for me. As always, if you did watch this and you would like to leave a like, comment or dislike, please feel free to do so. And if there is more you would like to see in the future, then hit that subscribe button. But I've been Danny Min. This has been Transport Fever 2 around the world in time from the Liverpool and Manchester Railway, and I will catch you later.